Now that Marcelo is here, well, we are all at ease. Good afternoon, everybody. I feel honored and privileged for being here. And my opening thoughts are the following. We always talk about the wealth and about the good quality of the Argentinian soil. It is one of our important assets, a key raw material for farming, our activity, and people always repeat and say this. If we don't measure the current status, we cannot improve, we won't understand where we are heading to. So, and today's panel is, the goal of this panel is to understand and measure the richness of the Argentinian soil from a technical point of view of these two people who will be talking about the technical aspects. This is a very interesting theme because, and this is weird, in Argentina, it's a project that has been going on for some time and will continue. And we have been working in this area for a long time. Marcelo is an agronomist. He works at INTA and is an international expert in soil organic carbon. He has been working in this field for many, many years, and he will now describe the map of the soil, and he will tell us how, what the new themes and new elements are in this discussion, but Florencia will talk about that. So thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much to Aapresid for inviting me to participate in this key panel. We decided to start talking about the current status and why it is important to work on soil organic content. There are many environmental and productive benefits. Soil is one of the most important areas where carbon could be put in. It helps us to adapt and reduce climate change. It improves the physical, chemical, and microbiological features of soils, and it has an impact on the environment, but it also improves the quality, the structure, porosity, the water dynamics, and nutrients cycle, and therefore, in the mid or long term, it stabilizes yields in fragile areas, and it increases the yields in areas that have a higher potential. And this, in turn, well, today there are many discussions about the volunteer carbon markets, where dealing with the carbon or managing it properly may also improve yields and income. Current status, well, we have a carbon map created in 2023. It was a very comprehensive project carried out by universities, the Agriculture Secretariat, CONICET, INTA, so many professionals and technical experts cooperated in preparing this map. We used 5,500 soil samples from all of Argentina. And this year there will be a paper about this published in a journal in Argentina. Basically, we can see the current status, carbon content of the soils in Argentina, which is 13 pentagram, 30 billion milligrams of carbon in the soil, which amounts to 2% of the carbon reserves worldwide. Argentina is the country that has the 9th highest soil carbon content in the world. We occupy position number 9 or number 10. And in the country, we see reasonable values, an average of 51 tons of carbon per hectare in the first 30 centimeters. And in sandy soils, it's 29 or 30 tons, where the soils have more clay. And in the south east of Buenos Aires, 100 tons of carbon in the first 30 centimeters. These are reasonable values, and they match the geographical features. We have also found in the data analyzed and gathered that the higher the carbon levels, the higher the uncertainty. That's why in this new stages of our work, we want to increase the volume of tests or samples to find out about soil density to improve the quality of the information. This is and the map was used to prepare the map Florencia will talk about later on. Of course, we assess several variables. Temperature, for example, realize that as the temperature goes, the mean average temperature goes up, the soil carbon content drops. And we have seen in many models that maybe in tropical or subtropical areas, there may be soils may lose carbon, but in colder areas, if there is an increase in temperature, there is an increase in carbon content. We are analyzing or looking into this. Maybe the increase in carbon in colder areas may make up for the loss of carbon in areas with higher temperatures. Clay is important because it helps to fix carbon. The higher the clay level, the better the carbon fixation. And this is just information that makes sense. We assessed all this and we realized that soils where the loamy soils, carbon sequestration levels are higher. And the strategy, what might happen in the future? Well, management strategies to increase organic carbon content in the soil. Well, there are several strategies. The most important thing is to try and increase carbon inputs into the soil, create more carbon with the biomass, but also cover the soil and protect it so that carbon will not be lost. Because if we increase the carbon content, but it's lost later on, it's useless. So of course, no-till systems, cover crops, more crops in the sequences, balanced nutrition or fertilization. The soil fertility should be known. We should know the levels of sulfur, nitrogen, etc. to know what nutrients we have and if we must increase them to increase carbon content. Organic shifts or changes, irrigation, which is important. For example, when you want to grow corn and making a rotation between agriculture and pastures or grasslands, it's important to have this rotation. This improves carbon content, soil carbon content, and considering the various management techniques, we might expect that if we improve the management, a given level of carbon sequestration per hectare per year will be achieved. For example, I don't know if you can read at the bottom of the screen, cover crops may increase carbon content up to half a ton of carbon per hectare per year. These figures have been tested and validated. So this was done in 2021 with the people of FAO. This is when they prepared the worldwide map of carbon sequestration in the soil. They considered the current situation, how much carbon could be sequestrated if there was an increase in carbon input through crops and pastures or grassland. This was a map that includes the whole of Argentina, including pastures, agriculture, and cattle breeding areas. And if the carbon input was lower, there might be an increase of 0.1 or 0.2 tons of carbon per hectare per year. And considering the whole arable land in Argentina, this would amount to 24 million equivalents of carbon dioxide equivalents. If you want to attach a value to that carbon that has been sequestered, taking the price of the voluntary carbon market, which is $10 per ton, this would amount to $240 million a year. And with a medium carbon input, where we might increase the carbon content per hectare per year by 0.2 or 0.3, which we believe is a more likely scenario that we will have if we use rotations and agriculture and cattle breeding. Well, we can see we might increase carbon input by 0.3 tons of carbon per year. Now, if we increase the carbon input with irrigation, rotation of cattle breeding activities and agriculture, we would be able to add half a ton of carbon per hectare per year. This amounts to $800 million, taking the information from the voluntary carbon market. But we should think that carbon, the management, when we increase carbon, the soil quality improves, this improves the yield of crops, and this is the most important benefit for agriculture, that is, an increase in yields. So this is an additional benefit. And now I give the floor to Flor, who will share the maps prepared by Aapresid. Marcelo, thank you very much. Marcelo described the work he has been carrying out for so many years, measuring carbon, and 3 years ago, new technologies were introduced to carry out this work. As you can see, this is live. The work carried out by Marcelo was the input for Aapresid's carbon network to tackle this project, which supplements the work Marcelo has been doing. Aapresid started work on this. This is based on a cooperation agreement between Aapresid and Syngenta. It's really very rarely that we have projects that last so long in Argentina. So Florencia will talk about Aapresid's carbon network. She's a professor and a researcher at Rosario National University, and she feels passion for carbon.
Last year, in this Congress, we presented digitalization of the carbon stock maps with the different levels. Current levels represent carbon stocks that exist in the different soils, in the different agroecological regions in the country. Also, we have numbers that would reach if growers in the same area would implement practice to increase carbon inputs in the system. And as Professor Ratanlal said, there are 4 principles of soil health: is to keep the no-till systems, to add 50% of grass crops in rotations, to add cover crops or service crops, and also to have a balanced nutrition with replenished nutrients such as nitrogens and phosphorus. The potential level and those that have the maximum storage capacity in our soil. These levels are strongly determined by the clay content and the horizon depth. this project is referred to this figure of the gas tank. It has different or fuel tank. The different filling levels, the same as the soil, and we were able to answer what is our carbon content in soils, what is the maximum saturation capacity our soils have for carbon. And so we can identify the different levels in the different regions in the country and what are the strategies to put in place in order to fill the tank, not only liters, not only in amounts, but also in quality. Also, we were able to identify the distribution of carbon gaps. In the northern part in Buenos Aires, in center and south Santa Fe and East Chaco, the gaps, there are the largest gaps between where we are and where we could be. These have these are based on the 4 different principles that would be adopted, as I mentioned. This could increase the soil carbon. This could happen because the soil level is very low or because there is one of these 4 practices that has not been adopted at large scale. In the region of Buenos Aires, the carbon stocks are very close to their maximum storage capacity. So the gaps between the current levels and the potential levels are lower, are smaller. With simulation models and digital mapping techniques of yields and planted area, we were able to create these new maps of dry matter contribution. They are now digitalized and they are freely available in Aapresid website. These maps are the ones that we are presenting today, and they represent the dry matter that soils would need in order to keep the current carbon levels or to reach higher levels. You can access to these maps in visiting the website. These maps enable the selection, the carbon layer that will tell us what will be the necessary dry matter to be added. With these filters, I can see or not to see the contribution of dry matter up to the user. There is an option that allows move this layer in order to better identify the plot. So I remove this layer and the system will give me the values that I really need. Also, I disable this layer so I can easily identify the plot. You have to be patient because there are many data included here, and so it goes slower. So the map gives us the information of what is it that we need to add in order to reach the desirable level. In this case, we should be adding 6.5 tons of dry matter. There is significant differences from one region to the other. The chart in the right shows us the percentage ratios between the current levels and the potential carbon levels. The current carbon stocks are below their potential really, or their maximum storage levels. The average for all the agricultural areas in the country, current stocks are about 46% of its maximum storage capacity. And there are areas where the current carbon stocks are very close to maximum storage capacity or saturation capacity. For instance, southeast Buenos Aires, we see this green or blue shaded areas that they reach about 95% of its maximum level. This area, which is marked with a red circle, North Buenos Aires, Córdoba, these areas, the carbon level in these areas are far below their storage capacity. So we need more work here and take care of the needs in these areas. In order to identify some practices that enable reducing this percentage ratio, we started to work with with ROTC simulation levels that project changes in carbon stocks, having a traditional scenario. This is the black curve, and the traditional scenario are real cases where we have a typical rotation at the area under study, and we also selected intensified scenarios. These are also real grower scenarios that participate in the chakra systems in Aapresid. This model was expanded across 50 years, and the balance is achieved at 20 years. Carbon analysis takes longer. That's why we considered 50 years. And this is real information that have been contributed by the growers that participate in the network. And for the case of typical rotations, we also used the information provided by the Secretary of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. This is information from Santiago del Estero. This is an artidiol. It has a loamy, sandy or loamy, claymy profile. It has high temperatures with high evapotranspiration. Therefore, carbon mineralization is also high. The green curve is the scenario proposed by the grower. This is an intensified, diversified scenarios that include service crops such as veg. And the curve shows that it has a sustained increase, very clear increase in time of the soil carbon stock. So the carbon increases progressively. This rate, 0.4 tons per year, is comparable to what you find in the literature, and the representative typical scenario in the region, which is soybean, corn, and soybean. This does not lose carbon, but it barely maintains the carbon stock. These are very fragile soils. Soils are eroded, they lose fertility. So we are showing here the importance of keeping the soil covered and have diversified rotation. We were wondering whether this grower would join the carbon market. They are gaining about 20 tons of carbons around 50 along 55 years. This would mean 77% more per hectare. This plot is also in Santa Fe. The texture of the soil is loamy or loamy clayey. It expresses its yield potential, and the carbon levels, the initial carbon levels, is high considering the country average. The typical rotation presented by the grower is corn, soybean, rye, soybean, corn, rye, and soybean again. This is represented in the green curve. It increasing carbon clearly. This grower in 50 years would be gaining 20 tons of carbon per hectare. This also represents the typical rotation of the soil, which is wheat, soybean, corn. Wheat, soybean, corn, soybean. This is a realistic situation. This also would need an additional support of organic matter. This grower would be able to have 710 tons per hectare. This projection is applied in La Pampa Northeast. It's also loamy, sandy. It has some water problems. It starts with very low carbon levels. There are limitations for carbon sequestration and maintenance. The rotation presented by the grower in an intensified framework, we don't see much carbon gained in this system. But what we want to do in these systems, we want to show that intensified systems are not sustainable in time because you lose structure, you lose texture and fertility. So we need to intensify crops. If the grower wanted to sequester carbon, they could consider planting pasture or permanent or perennial pastures, and so irrigation should be introduced as well.
Farmers don't show there is a loss in the system, but this limited gain of 4 tons per hectare could amount to $161 per hectare in the carbon market. Some conclusions. Well, the agricultural areas nowadays, in average, contribute 2.5 tons of carbon per hectare per year, and this is comparable to the contributions that are necessary to maintain and keep the current stocks. Of course, there are differences among the regions. Some regions would need 5 tons per hectare so as not to reduce the stock. And if we think about increasing the carbon stocks to the levels that they could achieve, we should increase by 10% the contribution of dry matter to go up to 3 tons of carbon per hectare. And if we wanted to maximize the carbon sequestration capabilities and get to the maximum, we would need 5.2 tons of carbon per hectare, which would amount to double the current contributions. Although nowadays the dry matter included in the system is enough to maintain the current levels. If we would like to increase the amount of carbon in the soil, we should increase the contribution of stubble and stubble and roots. Florencia, thank you very much. There are many reasons you have many reasons to be proud of your work, of your 3 years of work. And now we will have a discussion about the importance of this, and that's we would like to thank Florencia, Marcelo. Thank you for being here with us. And while we reorganize the chairs, we will invite ladies first. Giraudo, I will introduce you as you come on stage. She's the current president of SENASA and a consultant at INTA. You all know her. She was also the president of Aapresid in the past. Jorge Gambale. He's a farmer. He has been a consultant for Aapresid for many years, and he's the director of the cultural. So he also works at the Agriculture Secretariat of Argentina. Marcelo Torres, Aapresid present. Thank you for joining us and for arriving on time. And finally, Marcelo Delgado, the head of sustainability at Syngenta. Well, this is a top-level panel, actually, and for those of you who have just arrived, this is what I see. It's if all of us and Florencia would come and tell us the oil reserves of Argentina are 50% of what they used to be. We have spent 50%, but the surprise here is that we may recover the reserves, the stock. We are able to recover the reserves and make money out of it too. So, but this relies not on a map or on the identification of a gap, but what we need here is a road map. First, I'm going to ask the first speaker, who is representing the industry, farmers, INTA, because we have 4 groups represented here: the government, INTA, Syngenta, and farmers. Why have you invested? Why has Syngenta invested in this 3 years ago? Good afternoon. Good question. I would like to tell you that, well, now we have information we didn't have in the past. Syngenta is a company that innovates, that works with technology and in the area of sustainability, while these systems are systems which we have to consider for the long term, and sustainability is also something for the long term. In the core of our business as Syngenta, we have sustainability. Soil and farmers are the core of what we do. We are close to the farmers, and when we began to work 3 years ago, thinking that the project may last longer than 3 years in Argentina is really wonderful, but it's also good for Syngenta when I share a project like this one and the board approves it. Well, that means Syngenta is thinking of sustainability. Now, when we work together with Aapresid, Aapresid is the key partner for us. We have been working together on many projects for some years, and when they shared this project that was focused on creating this information, well, we actually needed more information, and this was key. We have many farmers, we have contact with many farmers, so do they, and we have the tools, so we decided to prepare the maps on year 1. We invited some farmers to join us. On year 2, we digitalized everything, as Flor has shown to you. Today, our farmers have access to the digital maps through our platform, Crowwise, so as to make things easier for our farmers who were already using Syngenta's digital tools. So we digitalized the maps. The simulation flowchart can also be seen using our tools. So we wanted to make things easier for the farmers. We decided it was important to have this information to know how much carbon could be sequestered, what that would mean in money terms, and of course, the fact that our company has supported this work for 3 years. Well, I feel proud of it. I know what happens within Syngenta, so I know that the fact that Guillermo has been able to have a budget for this project in years when business were not that successful. Well, I don't know how you did, but you were able to do so. Marcelo, the president of Aapresid, an organization made up by farmers. Increasingly more, we are talking about how difficult the scenarios are, the problems we face every day, profitability. So what farmers face every day? You are the president of Aapresid. How were you able to look beyond the current situation at all times and think of the middle and long term? Thank you, Carlos. I believe that it's the organization and its spirit that when there is a problem, so we had been working in this field for 15 years. When the first resistant weeds appeared, Aapresid said, let's talk to the technology people, to science, to see how we can solve this. This is a similar situation. We have a reduction in soil quality, worsening of soil features, carbon sequestration levels or carbon content in the soil that was dropping. So it was the same idea. We have to solve this. Let's talk to the technology people, to the public sector, to scientists, so that so as to find out how we can solve the problem. And of course, if you don't have information, you don't know what the current status is, how you could improve the content. Also, if you don't know how to measure, if you don't know what your potential is, how you could get it, what it depends on, and how the levels vary from area to area, how a different rotation may have an impact, and what that impact would be like. So we need information. I have a culture of working in networks. I worked with people from the scientific field, from the technology field. Aapresid has been working this way for many years, and we farmers work with other farmers in our region. We ask other farmers in the area, asking them what they have done, what has been successful and what not. And this is the same. It's a project. It's a larger scale project where we compare region with other regions, farmers with farmers in other regions. And I believe this is a starting point because carbon sequestration doesn't have such an interesting value in the market nowadays. But what is more important is to have more carbon in the soil, because you get better infiltration rates, better water storage, more microbiology, a better Newton cycle, and of course we have other elements here: climate change, whether carbon capture reduces the climate change problem. So for farmers who are involved in this, if things go well, they get the benefits. If the results of all these processes are not good, well, bad luck. But so Aapresid decided to jump on this bandwagon to work in an interactive project involving several stakeholders and sectors. At the very beginning, we had INTA, Aapresid, and manufacturers of agricultural equipment, but now we have included consumers, the industry. We have to expand the work with other partners, other stakeholders, and we have to create data, because without data, we won't be effective in problem solving. Thank you, Marcelo. And now I will give the floor to the National Institute of Agriculture Technology, INTA. So, right now, when there's so much discussion going on, which is the role of INTA nowadays in the discussions, in the current discussions, in this dream of recovering the soil's wealth and richness. Thank you for your question, and thank you for inviting us to participate in this panel discussion. I believe you have defined the way we should work in order to achieve successful results. And the role of INTA is to carry out research, development, to work on innovation, to do technology transfer, and to validate the technologies. Because right now, when there are so many discussions, I believe we should focus on having an INTA that really meets the requirements of the productive sector, and that we all should work together. And when we talk about the plan you have described, or the program you have described, it really includes everything INTA may contribute. And well, this proposal calls for knowledge coming from many, many different sources. And I can see in this, among the audience, we have many INTA people who are INTA professionals who were in INTA in the past and who are members of INTA or who work for INTA currently, and they have different kinds of knowledge. And at the current point of time, we need lots of knowledge contributions so as to make an additional contribution to the proposal. And INTA is also very close to local people. So we need interdisciplinary knowledge, sources of knowledge, but this knowledge is completed, combined, and we get knowledge from people that are in different places in the field, people that face different that come from different agroecological scenarios, people who are close to ports or harbors. So INTA may also make a contribution here through this knowledge of their people that come from different places and that may define different strategies. The diversity, which sometimes, because of the commoditization of the business after so many years or of the market, boxes us in a small place, something which runs very smoothly. And INTA and Aapresid are doing this very well because this is the model these two organizations have chosen to use. And with this Syngenta supported program on what we are talking about, well, is the famous interactive innovation models, so that the INTA professional is doing research in one area which may be working in an experimental area. Usually the speed of scientific and technological changes has an impact on farmers, and this is where things happen. And in this model, we work together, scientists, technical people, farmers, companies, and vendors of services to work together to face the challenges ahead. For INTA specifically, this means focusing on what the productive sector needs so as not to waste any time and be ready to devise the solutions that are required. Thank you. Very crystal clear as always, Pilo. We have talked to technology vendors, farmers, the federal government, and now we give the floor to the bad guy. Sorry. This is the organization that is seen as an organization that is just interested in collecting money. Now, which is the role of the government? You are representing the Agriculture Secretariat. So what is the role of the government in this scenario? I love you too. Well, and thank you for mentioning it. I can see many familiar faces, many friends here.
Also, the team of the National Directorate is present here. I come from the private sector. I'm a Aapresid member as well. And that network working spirit in Aapresid is something that I learn from them, and I also transmit this to the team. When we have a strategic tool as this map, both for supply and demand, I mean is strategic for the grower. As Marcelo said, the grower is there, but it's also strategic for the demand when we want to be exposed to the country, how things should be done. As a national director, in my role, I intend to generate that information. I also like to work in networks. I understand the virtue and the value of that. I think that the interesting thing about this is to have an Argentine carbon map and provide two-way responses to the world and to the grower that creates that maps. I've been talking in our secretary. You well know that last season, with the leafhopper, the Dabalus maydis created a significant problem in corn, an important crop in our country. And that linkage, public-private, public-public, private-private, we created the monitoring team. And the only thing that the secretary do was to bring all these pieces together, all the parts together. We are making life easier for the grower, and we just need to pave the way for him to bring all the parties together and sit all of them around a table, and then things happen and things are created with that starting point. As a director, this is what I hope, this is the way I hope to impact on people. This is going on now. There is a bonus track. We are doing well with time. I think that we have time for the bonus track. This is a question for all of you. Questions are not only for you, Jorge. How do we convert this map to a road map? I mean, this map can mark the way to follow, probably because of the way I work and my origin. I see that this is easier. I think that the road map will come spontaneously in that working desk where science and technology, growers, private companies, and corporations, and the state. The state as only facilitator. The state has to facilitate the members in that table, the people sitting around that table, their work. Somebody asked me, how come that you manage so many topics at the same time? I manage human resources, I manage knowledge, concepts, I manage the people that join us. I think that Argentina has very valuable human resources, very valuable growers. Growers are innovative. Always doing things. I think that we have to pave the way, we have to create the environment, we have to have this meeting, this working table, this working decks, and we will have results. Pilu. I think that the inspiring thing is this agricultural revolution in Argentina that started 40 years now. Many people have shared this in this environment. This is a sort of revolution, but this revolution is the result of the joint work. And it started with a basic concern, which is taking care of water and soil, and it started to expand, and the challenge became more complex. And today we are in a place where this network that becomes stronger and stronger as part of this challenge and revolution also introduces more and more tools that facilitate our action, our way. Today I was looking at the girls from the AgTech that really collaborate a lot with us. They were concerned about the productive leap that we can achieve improving fertilization. This is one more variable. Not to mention what we are talking about now. I think that we strengthen this working network. We are introducing new possibilities to continue improving. I think that the difference now is that we learned how to work the private and the public sector together. There are still lots of challenges ahead of us. As Jorge said, doing more work with public-public, private-public, and private-private. I put the SENASA, I put on my SENASA hat. These challenges need a safety and health organization that simplify things or streamline things, which does not mean being less rigorous. We take that responsibility. I think that we are on the way to continue strengthening this roadmap. I really feel proud of the fact that Aapresid children are leading the agriculture in the country. As I told everybody I said hello to, I took this responsibility is exactly because of that, because I have the support. I feel myself ready to contribute knowledge with your support. Roadmap. Before adhering to what you have said, we are proud in Aapresid to have these people in so important roles. Really, they are very courageous. Talking about the articulation, I agree with them. I think that we need to have a consolidated information. I believe that we have to broaden the network. This collaborative network, we have to work with the industry, because the idea is to reduce the carbon print or the print, environmental print. We are aware that for this to be adopted, the market can tell the difference in terms of footprint. The same with the bank. So what we are trying to do is to have a stimulus from the market for the grower, so that the market can recognize and can acknowledge that a specific grower produces a smaller footprint or has a specific IQ, or that's why we are working with carbon models, with predictive models. And we need to digitalize, because many of these services are done in Excel. Many of them don't have geo-referenced maps. So this is a way we have to go yet. We have to digitalize information much more, to work with geo-reference information, site-specific agriculture, work with traceability, with indicators, have the industry and the farming sector working together, discussing things together. And we are all aware of how important predictive models are, but I feel that we are still need to digitalize further. So this is music for my ears. The end message. Roadmap. I agree with this concept of private-public linkage. We need to work with key organizations. Those of you who know Syngenta know that we play that role of linkage, of linking actions. All initiatives that come from our company is accepted and taken up by the state and by the market and the growers. We know that the grower is the end customer, is our priority. We need to find the value for the grower, and there is where we have to go. It's we're really proud to have participated in this panel. Thank you.